talk about the abstract. The abstract is obviously going to be a little bit more involved. So I want to give you a little more of an introduction there. And I thought I would start by talking more generally about the components of the research proposal, because today is the start of us writing this proposal. And what you will see if you look at the course schedule is that we basically have each class period devoted to various aspects of this proposal. So today we're going to emphasize the abstract, and I will say that I'll just mention that I have kind of the page limits over here on the side. There's a 30-line limit to the text here. We will next week go through a specific aims page. Remember that we are going to be emphasizing NIH here just to keep a common structure to our proposal writing class. And so we will be adding this aims page. In NSF world, this would be an objectives page. So there is a similar thing but with NSF, but we're going to emphasize the specific aims page. What are specific aims? Specific aims are sort of the mini goals you have that will test the hypothesis or the idea that you have. Okay, so let's talk about the specific aims here will be abbreviated, just short snippets of what your mini goals are. But if you go to the main research strategy, this is really where you outline the meat of your proposal. And we'll talk about the significance of the background section actually we're going to spend 2 weeks on this because we really want to emphasize this is really where you're going to get to the real nuts and bolts of your proposal. We are going to then move on to the approach. We're going to leave the innovation and the future direction sections for the end because we can do that at the end best. The approach section is where now you're really proposing experiments, and these experiments are going to be related to these smaller mini goals, these aims that you're going to come up with. So as you are developing your abstract, you want to be thinking about what your mini aims are going to be. Oh, I have to make my molecule and test it biologically, and then I can put it into my mammalian cell my mammalian cell system. And Ed will go through this a little bit with you in an activity at the end. I also want to mention that I did look at the graduate student handbook for your class, and it makes it clear there's a lot of flexibility in the length of this document. I put 5 to 10 pages. I think that would be what I as a committee member would like to see. But what is also in that graduate student handbook is that you need to use this font Times New Roman or Arial 11.1-inch margins and 1.5 space line spacing. So just keep that in mind as you're starting to write these things. Okay, why do we care about the abstract? Like the title, the abstract is, again, a first impression. It gives not just a glimpse of sort of the overall idea like the title does, but it gives more detail. What's the problem? What's the gap in the field? What is the hypothesis? Why is this a fantastic idea? Okay, and that's where you're going to try to now articulate. Now that you have an idea that you're excited about, it's time to put it to paper. Okay, so here are the guidelines that I just want to briefly mention. The project summary is a succinct and accurate. So by the way, we're going to call it an abstract, but because an abstract is what you think about for papers, and what I'm talking about here can relate to your publications as well. NIH calls it a summary, but summary or an abstract is similar. So in any case, this is where you have a succinct and accurate description of the proposed work. This section should be informative to people not working in the same area. So it should be a little bit more layman. So you want to make sure that even a non-expert could really read this. Please avoid descriptions of past accomplishments. Really just talk about your problem and how you're going to fix it and be concise. Okay, and then here's the guidelines for the format. And so here are some of the pieces of the abstract. Let me move on and talk about the different parts of the abstract. These are the pieces. So when you are writing your abstract, I want you to come back to this slide. And I want you to write a topic sentence on the larger research field, okay? I want you to write a few sentences on the background information. We then want to very clearly state the gap in the field. This field cannot move forward because blank has not happened, okay? What is the thing that is limiting progress in this field? A clear, concise statement. Then you want to move on to your goals and your approach. Clearly state what your long-term goal is. Once this proposal, once this project is completed, I will have cured cancer, or I will have the best COVID-19 detection method available, or something like that, okay? Something as like your long-term goal. Maybe this is a goal that will extend beyond your smaller goals in this proposal. You should always have a bigger picture that you're looking at. And so in this proposal, though, you can't do the full long-term goal. You're just going to focus on your working hypothesis that you can explore in this shorter document. I guess my advice is to think about your proposal is basically work that you can do in a few years from one graduate student. I think you don't want to have like a huge proposal. Think about a few experiments, a working hypothesis that you could explore in the next few years yourself. Okay, and then write some of these mini goals. I need to learn about this part of my protein before I can go on to do this thing I really want to do. I need to learn about the properties of my nanomaterials before I can go on to apply it to my biological or my system. And then always end with a statement of significance. When this project is accomplished, that we will be able to do X, and it's going to be something fantastic. Okay, so I wanted to, I'm afraid I don't have a huge amount of time here, but I wanted to go through, I have two examples of funded, these are from the NIH, and these are both funded proposals, and this was the abstract from this funded proposal. So what I want you to do is just take maybe a minute or two, and I want you to identify the key things we just talked about. Can you identify the general field? Can you identify the gap in the field? What is the long-term goal? What is the hypothesis that's being explored? What are the mini goals, the mini aims, those specific aims in the proposal? And then what is the big significance of this work? So can you just take a few minutes and try to identify that? And then we'll go through this together. So if you wanna, again, when you feel comfortable, unmute yourself and chime in what words you identify as those critical components, or again, use the chat room if you're more comfortable with that. And I'll get ready to highlight some things. Has anybody identified the gap in the field? There's one key word you should be looking for to find the gap. If you found it, let me know. Yeah, so in the chat, I just saw the biological impact of this pathway to IBD, which is somewhere, hopefully, I guess it's not defined here. That's a mistake. But you're right. This is the gap in the field. Very important, right? What is the field? I guess I would say it's human immune-mediated diseases, right? Do you see where the long-term goal is? It's pretty easy in this abstract, right? The author does a really good job of highlighting the long-term goal. Do you see it? Our long-term goal is. You see that? That's pretty simple language to make clear what the goal is. Do you see a hypothesis? The central hypothesis is, right? So this writer is very thoughtful because he's making it super easy for us to find the information that we want to see. What about specific aims? Do you see those really clearly? Our specific aims will test the following hypothesis, and this researcher identifies, in his case, there are 3 specific aims. I think for your proposals, I don't know how Ed feels about this, but I would recommend you looking for about 2. I think 2 is a good a good starting point. And then there should be a final impact statement. You see the word impact here? It's pretty great. This guy really makes it easy for us to figure out what he or she is doing, right? How'd that go? So when you write your abstract, you want to use the same simple, straightforward language, but of course, making it appropriate for your idea. How about we do one more? And by the way, well, I should finish up here. So what I did, and I will post this in our class module for today, I actually went through and did the same thing. I outlined the background information, the gap, and then I emphasized a few things in the approach. How about this? I'm going to leave this up. This is actually one of my own abstracts. So this is from a funded proposal from me, from my lab. And so I thought you guys could see how well I did and identify. So why don't I make this as like a little homework project for you? And I'll put the answer in the I'll repost these notes with the answer. So you guys can see how well you do at identifying these different components. Okay, so just to end here, I want to move on and let Ed finish up by having you guys write, or at least start identifying the pieces of the abstract for our COVID-19 project in our class. So just be sure that your abstract includes all of the information we just talked about. Use simple language. The unmet need is, the gap in the field is, the hypothesis is, you know, a scientific writing does not have to use colorful verbs. It can be very straightforward. And in fact, when I started writing my writing grants for the first time, I really felt like this simple language made my grants much clearer. So don't be afraid of using this very simple sentence structure. And then please realize you're going to write your abstract for next week. And that abstract should change and change and change some more as you start writing the rest of your proposal. Always go back to it and revise it and refine it, because it will grow with your proposal. Okay, so let me just say that you are, as your homework number 4, you're going to take your favorite idea and write this abstract. You now know the components, and this abstract and title that you turn in next Thursday will be used to just verify that you're doing something outside of your research advisor's field. Okay, so